understanding that Mr. McClintock would like to strike the last word.
No,
You're recognized
for
for 5
speak on
minutes.
the amendment under
Correct.
the 5-minute rule. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to begin by offering a few translations of the bureaucraties and gobbledygook that we've heard in description of this bill. One description was, well, we thank our veterans for their service by deporting them. Well, no, we deport them because they committed crimes and were ordered removed by a court of law. We're told, well, the bill's very narrow. Well, except for one thing, it presumes that any alien, not just someone who served in the military, any alien by virtue of lawful permanent residence is presumed to have established good moral character. But the best was, well, they just messed up. What that means is they committed crimes. Now, what Mr. Biggs' amendment says is that the victims of their crimes ought to have a say before they're admitted back into the country, or at least the convicted criminal should be required to pay the fines that they were assessed for their crimes before they're allowed back into the country. This provision extends far beyond just the foreign veteran who committed crimes and was deported. This bill includes family members who've been ordered deported, and it extends to any person with a green card the automatic presumption that they've proven good moral character. Now, one member said, well, we don't have a private justice system, and that is absolutely true. We have a public justice system based upon due process of law. Now, what the bill says is that after you've had due process and it's run its course, and after an immigration judge orders removal, then Ali Mayorkas and his committee can overturn that judgment, ignore the law, and reverse that decision and ignore the victims. This bill says, well, Mayorkas can ignore the entire judicial process, but he can't ignore the victims. Yeah, at least we should ask the victims of these crimes to have a say in whether the criminal who impacted their lives should be left back in the country, and to place the few criminals who served in the military alongside the many law-abiding immigrants who served in the military is a remarkable insult and injustice to our law-abiding veterans. It's said, well, the bill puts people over politics. No, it puts criminals over victims. And I'll yield my time to Mr.
Would the gentleman yield?
Thank you. I thank the gentleman for yielding to me. I want to put this in context, and I think Mr. McClintock has done a great job putting it in context. First of all, the current state of law is a non-citizen serving in the military is going to gain status. Second of all, this bill focuses on criminals. That's what it's focusing on, criminals. Criminals who've had their day in court. They've had due process, as Mr. McClintock pointed out. It also goes to their family members. This bill says if you've been removed from the country as a criminal having been convicted of committing certain crimes after receiving due process both in the immigration courts and the criminal courts, that you cannot, the Secretary cannot not allow you back in, doesn't have the ability to waive those things. But if you have not yet been removed, the committee is under no such constraint. They can provide a recommendation that you remain in the country. And while that's maybe non-binding, the Secretary is still required to report back to that committee, that advisory committee, on what the Secretary has done vis-a-vis that recommendation. Now, let's consider, because the argument has been made, well, the victims are accounted for because the Secretary is constrained, but that's only post-removal after the veteran has been convicted and had due process under immigration laws. So here's the way it works. Aggravated felony. These are the only aggravated felonies that bind the Secretary. Murder, rape, sexual abuse of a minor, child pornography, and in some sexual trafficking cases. But it doesn't preclude the Secretary from allowing in people who have committed a crime of violence for which the term of imprisonment is at least 1 year. No, that's an aggravated felony. Nor does it proscribe or constrain the Secretary on any of the other aggravated felonies listed in the title. That is the problem. And the one group of people that are not considered at all are the victims. I'm just saying, why don't we consider the victims? Let them have their say. Let them participate. That's what I'm saying here. And with that, I'll yield back to the gentleman from California.
Thank you. I'll yield to my friend from California in the remaining moments.
Thank you, Mr. McClintock. I believe it's clear that the section on page 14, the provision relative to clarification is only about veteran non-citizens, but if the gentleman is concerned that that is not clear, we'd be happy to ask unanimous consent to make it clearer that it's veterans non-citizens, that
I
it's not
appreciate that,
intended.
because our analysis is pretty clear on the point. It involves any alien. So if
Well,
you're willing to amend the bill.
I don't think
to
it does,
make
but
that-
we do not want any uncertainty on it, and so we
Appreciate
will ask unanimous consent to insert veteran non-citizens in
Thank
the
you for making a
appropriate section.
terrible bill a bad bill.
So without objection, that amendment will be adopted, and I now recognize Ms. Escobar to strike the last